How are we doing, everybody, and welcome to Russell Heritage Golf. Today we're talking about a great exercise, something that I would genuinely advocate that you do at home, but it's also something you can do down the driving range as well. Where we are, basically, if you're new to the channel, then basically I spend my time breaking the golf swing down so that you can understand it, but then I also try and help you at points in this series. If you were to video your swing, you should be able to diagnose at what point it's going wrong and how to make sure that you get it working a little bit better for you. Now, what I've talked about recently is I've talked about in detail of the backswing, and we've started recently talking about that transition. So this sort of area as to when we start thinking about initiating the downswing. What I talked about in the last video and my kind of recent videos is I've talked about the idea that you would swing up towards the top and you would initiate the downswing with a lower body rotation. As we start to trigger a lower body rotation, you can see the way my shoulder would start to make its way naturally towards the target, because as I turn my hips, if you like, it'll have a knock-on effect towards my spine, which would inevitably have a knock-on effect towards my upper body and the shoulders, if you like. I mentioned it briefly before. What you want to do in the golf swing is that you want to create a separation. A separation stops you doing things like swinging over the top. So if everything starts at the same rate of rotation, you would just swing over the top in your golf swing like so. So we need to kind of, if you like, lead with the lower body first. And we've talked about in detail how to do that in previous videos. Whilst doing this little exercise today, you do need to make a conscious effort that as you start to initiate your lower body movement, that you want to try and feel like you're keeping your arms up at the top of the backswing. The reason why is that you'll start to activate muscles down your arm, start to use things more like your obliques, and by doing that, you'll actually find that the movement will feel much more powerful, right? So what am I talking about? Well, to understand what I'm asking you to do, let's go back to the concept of playing, which means that we go back to the idea of using our long sticks. Quite a few people ask questions about these in terms of where I get them from. I mean, these are greenkeeping canes, basically. So I get access of these because I know a couple of people that can get me to, get access to them. But go down to your local hardware store and just get a large piece of dowel would be suffice. We're using these not because they have to be made out of the sort of graphite material, just because of the length of it gives you can see it out of your own kind of, peripheral vision, basically, right? Now, we would swing up towards the top. We would start to initiate the lower body with the twisting motion, if you like, of the hips. As we do this, the shoulder starts to make its way around. Now, what you can see from a side-on perspective is the way that this shaft would be pointing down towards my target line, which effectively means that I'm swinging back on plane. As I'm doing this, I'm also trying to keep my arms up in the air, so then I can start to feel a pull down my arms and start to feel a pull down the left-hand side, if you like, around my oblique area or my rib cage and around my core. So basically I'm storing energy, right? And that's a feeling you want for power. So we want to swing the club on plane, but we also want to become more athletic in terms of how we're doing it. So it's an important thing. Now, in my last video, I also talked about the idea that if you possess the range of motion to be able to externally rotate and create a huge separation, then you can go along with the idea of trying to hold on to lag for much longer. But in the context for most golfers just getting better, as long as you abide by the law of swinging the club on plane, and as long as you rotate to the point where you can maintain your axis of rotation, if you like, your spine angle, then you're going to massively improve anyway, right? So whether you're somebody who, you notice you swing up to the top, you start to open up your lower body, you can see the way my hips go back to square to target, and my left arm at this point is still at left arm horizontal. That's the important part of this drill, right? Whether you're here or whether you choose to be more here because you're trying to drive your elbow down towards the side of you, or whether you're more vertically placed at this time, even more this way, those things don't matter at this moment in time, right? Unless you're able to create a huge separation and a huge amount of external, then to be honest with you, as long as by left arm horizontal, your pelvis is back to parallel towards target and you can feel this pressure building, then happy days. What should happen from this position is that basically, as you can see from face-on perspective, my shaft angle is vertically placed. Now it's starting to turn the corner, okay? So that means the down cocking is starting to be applied. Now, down cocking is not like a casting motion. Don't be fearful of this. Down cocking is how you create club head speed. I've talked about this before. Down cocking is something you definitely need in your golf swing to introduce much more power in towards your game. The hard thing in golf, and the reason why it's really important that you understand it, is at what point would an individual down cock, and it'd be different for every golfer. You can't give a definitive, point as to when you should downcock, because it depends relative to your plane, it depends relative to your separation. But that's why I want you to do this drill, because I think it will give you the strongest feeling as to when you should do it. So going back to the concept of plane, up towards the top, open up the lower body, and then from here you can see as I continue to turn, you can see the way I'm downcocking the wrists, which basically means the end of the shaft is pointing through towards my ball to target line, and then as I keep coming down, the end of the golf club now works back towards my target line, which means at the point of impact, you can see from a face-on perspective that I am nice and solid in terms of my relationship between the shaft and the arm. And this is how you're going to create tremendous amounts of club head speed by allowing the club to downcock. It amazes me how many people don't do this and they think they've got to hit the ball this way. And then you lose so much club head speed because you don't allow the club to downcock. The problem is, right, and the drill is that you're going to do one of two things. If not, you're going to do both, right? We're going to come back to that exercise again. But you're going to do that one in the garden. And if you go down the driving range, you're going to swing up towards the top, you're going to get into the same sort of position, and then you're going to allow yourself to downcock onto the back of the ball. And as you do that, then it will start to make so much more sense, because the reason why people get it wrong and the reason why people look this way at impact is not because you're downcocking too early or something like that. It's because you don't open up. See, if I don't open up and I start to pull my arms down and then there's no space, then eventually you're going to look a little bit stuck and a little bit too flicky. So the idea with this is that it's very much like swinging up to the top first, open up your lower body to create space. Now you can downcock back onto plane, but also by creating this rotation means I can still swing through on plane as I move through. And if you're somebody who's hitting balls and you want to make the most out of your time in your practice, then you want to do the same routine. You want to swing up, you want to open up, then you want to downcock onto the back of the ball. And it will feel so much more free and so much easier to do. Over time, then you can start to speed it up, meaning that you can either try and hit the ball harder and you can start to speed up this movement, or at home, you can use your cane, and instead of having to do it very methodically and slowly, then you can start to speed the whole thing up, and it will make a massive difference to your game. So this is something that I would advocate very much that you do. Very, very much. Like I said, you could have great understanding of the golf swing, which is one thing, right? Aligning your perception and reality is another thing. But making yourself tell yourself the right sort of story is that third and final piece. And those are important things. And that's why really you've got to be careful in terms of how you practice. And arguably, in my opinion, spending time doing a drill like this would be worth much more weight in gold than going down the driving range and just whacking golf balls aimlessly. So hopefully you're starting to understand it, right? It's a really important thing to get, because the whole point of breaking the golf swing down is that by the time we get to this stage, hopefully it starts to make much more sense as to why we would downcock and how to swing on plane and then how to swing through on plane, and hopefully the whole journey starts to make much more sense to all of you. Right, that's it for today. Windy and cold back here at this moment in time, so I'm going to go in. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. Always appreciate a thumbs up and a like, and remember, it's free to press that subscribe button. If you're going to do that, then you might as well press the little bell icon, so that means you'll receive notifications every time a new video comes out. Also, remember, it's free to send swings into the channel. You just have to patiently understand that I will annotate over all the videos that I get my chance to, right? And I'll basically give you some free annotations just to make sure that you're moving in the right sort of direction. I do those as soon as I possibly can, but it's still free to do so. Remember, the description to my social media links are in that description box below, is where you'll find the links to where you send in the swings. Catch up with you again soon.